flesh and fat off of this. There's little bits and pieces left. There's a trick that I'll show you to make sure that all the rest of that is off later. But now we need to get the rest of the hair off. As I said, because of the way this hide was cared for, a lot of it's already slipping out, which is basically just from sitting in water. It's basically decay on the hair side of the hide. However, even though there may be a little bit of decay, shouldn't damage the hide. And this one certainly hasn't been uncared for enough to damage it. But we have to get the rest of this hair off. I'm going to go ahead with it's called a wet scraping method. And we're going to put it in what's called a bucking solution. And that's going to be a combination of, traditionally you could use wood ash, but our ashes out here is such soft wood that it'll take too long. I'm going to go ahead and use what I have left of Red Devil lye. You can buy some lye or lime also online and use it, although it's hard to get your hands on it just in a grocery these days. The reason you have to take this hair off is when you get your hide, if you look at that hair, it's actually a hollow hair. And with deer, elk, and some other animals, antelope, they have a hollow hair, and if you don't go ahead and take it off of there, it'll wind up breaking and shedding anyway, and you'll be shedding hair from your clothing if you make it into clothes, or if you lay it over the back of a couch or something like that, it'll shed all over your house. So let's go ahead. We've got it fleshed. I did nick it a couple times with my draw knife, but it's been fleshed. Let's go ahead and make the bucking solution. All the bucking solution is lye and water. Use some kind of a plastic container. I'm using my rain barrel that I had the hide soaking in earlier because I had to empty it out anyway to get all the deer hair and that sort of thing out of it. But you'll see how the hide is fairly loose at this point. As we put it into this lye, what that'll do is it'll start slipping the hair, and you have to get the top layer of the skin off, which is the epidermis. This loosens that up a little bit so that you can scrape most of it off. It also will wind up shrinking up the hide a little bit, which we'll have to neutralize it later with either water or vinegar. Since this is a base and vinegar is an acid, that evens the two of them out. Put this in here. I'm going to go ahead and start with about half a can. Pour it right into the barrel and fill it up with water. As this fills, it might not be a bad idea to mix it up a little bit. And if you want to test and make sure that the lye solution is strong enough, you should be able to float an egg in it, which I'm not going to do now. I'm basically just going to eyeball this. Also, particularly in hot weather, you want to keep your bucking solution in a cool area. Otherwise, if it heats up too much, it'll actually cook your hide and ruin it. You can leave this in here, depending on the weather, for an indefinite period of time. I did it in Missouri in the winter one time and left my hide in the bucking solution for I think a month. This time I'm going to do it for about a week. I'm working on this on a weekend. Next weekend it should be done, if not earlier. That's when I'm going to start taking the hair off of it. Also, regarding keeping it cool, it's April in New Mexico and it's still fairly cool. I have this net up here so that enemy aircraft can't see my house. That should give this a little bit of shade even though it's on the west side of the house, but it should still keep it cool enough that it won't burn up. Our bucket's just about filled up here, and I'm going to go ahead and dump our hide in. You want to wind up poking it all the way down in there. You don't want any pockets that doesn't have the water and lye attached to it, or they can actually rot in the bucket. So we'll go get ahead, and you'll feel how it's slick. That's the base, the base and the lye. And we'll go ahead and dip that in there. And then make sure you wash all of it off of your arms. Some people would suggest using rubber gloves. I just make sure that I keep everything washed off. So, this is ready to let sit here. I'll come in every probably day or so and stir it up a little bit with some kind of a pole to make sure that it's circulated in there well. But basically we'll just wait a week, come back out here, and then we'll flesh it. Or rather, we'll take the hair off of it. This is our hide. It's been in the bucking solution for 9 days. I'll do a close-up here in a minute, but you can see how the hide thickens up when it's in the bucking solution and almost gets rubbery. At this point, what we're going to do is throw it back over the beam using the same tools, scrape off the rest of the hair, and get as much of the epidermis off as we can also. If you take a look at this, you can see how it's thickened up much more than when it was a rawhide. And what we're going to do is get this top layer of skin off as much as we can, get the rest of the hair off, and then neutralize this base solution with the lye and string it up to sand it. Here's our hide again over the frame, and as before, most of the hair is already slipped, but the rest of it you can almost take out with your fingers. But in order to do this correctly, you want to make sure that you get the epidermis off, which is the top layer of skin, and this will help get it part way. Essentially, just carefully slip underneath all that hair. Now, I know several people who prefer this wet scrape method, and it works terrific. Some of them don't even dry out the hide. But in order to make sure that the epidermis comes off, I will always dry it and sand it. And once I get the rest of this hair off, that'll be our next step. We go ahead and scrape all of the rest of the hair off. In fact, this could have waited a little bit longer, I think, in the bucking solution, and we could have been able to get some more of that epidermis off at the top. We'll go ahead and get the rest of the hair off, and then neutralize it and frame it up. Here's our finished hide. It has all the hair removed, not all the epidermis. At this point, we have to neutralize it because the hide is still thickened up with that lye and still rubbery. In order to do that, you can put it in an adequate supply of water, preferably running water, and that'll eventually wash all that out. It's a little bit faster just to put it into distilled vinegar. The distilled vinegar will react with the lye and neutralize it, and the skin will once again be less rubbery and much more pliable. And then we'll go ahead and string it up on the frame. Get your vinegar, pour it into some kind of container, and then add the hide. You'll want to periodically move the hide around in it to help it neutralize faster, and then I would go ahead and rinse it in water just to be on the safe side and to get some of that vinegar smell out. But for now, basically just let it soak and neutralize with the vinegar.